Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fam Sports Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 3 Part 2, breaking down the games of the weekend. And this one is for the remaining games. We did a show earlier this week talking about the Thursday games, and those are going on right now as we speak. This is pretty much for the Saturday games, Monday, Tuesday, the remaining games of Week 2. But let's just start off. How's it going, man?
It's going well, man. It's definitely weird, the fact that there's a lot of teams missing, right? There's a lot of games that have been canceled or paused or postponed, and that just comes with the territory. But at the end of the day, and I said this to a lot of people, just being able to play. I mean, that's the most important thing, and just getting the kids on the field and just enjoying the sport is definitely a plus.
Yeah, and a lot of programs have picked up games pretty quickly, and there's obviously some games that we talked about that got moved or canceled. And so, we try our best to be as up to date, but sometimes when you produce a show earlier in the week, it's hard to control that. But Mars, since we have a lot of games to go over, all the classes, and again, we got a bunch of feedback. We're not sure if we're going to continue doing this, mixing all the classes. We might do a kind of a different setup, but this, because of the holiday weekend, we decided to go into this route. But, we have a lot of games. We want to welcome the audience. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us the thumbs up. I know a couple kids have, poked fun at us when we get wrong, and that's all good. I love it. So we obviously
if there's a my face on a locker somewhere, it'd be great to share it.
I love creating extra motivation. I mean, that's great. This is the most fun part about it, is talking sports and having a little bit of fun with each other. But Mars, let's get into it, because we have a bunch of games to go over. We're going to pick all the games at the end, but we're going to take about 7 of the most prominent games, including our game of the week. And let's start in C. Dobbs Ferry 1-1 at Valhalla. This was the rematch of the 2019 C Championship that Valhalla won. But if you look at historically, Dobbs Ferry has owned this matchup. They are 10-2 versus Valhalla since 2004. But those 2 losses were in 2019 when Valhalla beat them, including the championship. When you look at the last week, Dobbs Ferry lost to Bronxville in a really tough game. Bronxville has been really rocking. Valhalla won versus Rhinebeck in a very good bounce-back win for them. Both these teams 1-1, trying to make a statement on who is the second best team in C, Mars. And we'll start with Dobbs Ferry. Last week really was a struggle. I thought they lost the battle up front. Bronxville's really tough. The turnovers really hurt this team. But I'm expecting the offensive line to bounce back. I still think they're a very solid unit. I'm expecting quarterback Harry Dan to have a bounce-back game as well, because he had a few turnovers. I'm expecting him to be ready to go, and he's going to be making some plays. The thing that really hurt Valhalla when I watched them against Rhinebeck was quarterback runs, but it was quarterback runs out of the spread. Now, Dobbs Ferry doesn't do that, but I'm expecting them to test the edge of the defense, not in the similar concepts that Rhinebeck did, but, kind of the similar setup, right? Use Harry Dan to get to the outside, use McGovern to get to the outside. I think they're going to test off tackle on the edge with those guys. Defensively, Mars, you're going to see a run-heavy scheme. This is not going to be the same game that we saw in the championship, right, with Dawson throwing around to his receivers. This is going to be run-heavy. Obviously, there's no Dawson. You're going to see, off-tackle attacks, edge attacks, wing T style, double wing style, option style, and then even some spread. So you're going to see a bunch of Melvin Davis. You're going to see O'Neal at quarterback, which I thought he did a pretty good job. So this is going to be really relying on the linebackers, guys like Soderquist, the edge defenders, to come up big in this game. They're going to have to be active. They're going to have to protect the outside, force Valhalla, who is a little beat up on the O-line, to run in between the tackles. That's going to be the big thing for them. Because if they do that, I think they will have a good chance. I think this game will look very different than the 2019 championship. Mars, what are your thoughts on Dobbs Ferry?
Yeah, I think Dobbs Ferry is, it was definitely a tough loss last week for sure, and I think that they will have definitely a bounce back play this week, and especially from the offensive line. A lot of times you notice that a team doesn't just have 2 horrible weeks in a row. Usually they always have one bad week and then they bounce back in some sort of way, and I think the offensive line is going to do so. I think it's going to definitely rely on a lot of these key run offense to really get things going, to really control the pace again, and kind of go back to their roots a little bit. And I think they're going to try to attack the C gap as much as possible. Defensively, I mean, you're definitely going to be fighting kind of the same thing that you would wish to do, attack the outside. I think they just need to bottle up any sort of runs to the outside, and really the linebackers have to make a lot of plays.
Yeah.
They have to be playmakers in this game, just because last week they didn't really do so. And
they missed a lot of tackles.
They missed a lot of tackles, and you need to utilize the time you're on the field, and you need to get off. The defense needs to get off the field as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Moving to Valhalla, Mars, I thought Valhalla found a nice identity to their offense. I know they had the bad injury at quarterback, which really changed their entire scheme. So you will see wing T stuff, concept stuff. You'll see option stuff, and you'll see some spread. But they're really spreading you out to run the ball and maybe throw some of the short passes, right? When they get close to the end zone, they'll start doing those jump ball. But again, when I watch the quarterbacks play, with quarterback Tomorrow who stepped in for Valhalla, running the wing T stuff and running the option stuff, I thought he was pretty solid. He had a rushing touchdown. But O'Neal was the one who really impressed me at the quarterback spot, because that's when he went into spread, and they ran a lot of quarterback runs. And he did a good job. He had 85 yards rushing. But the guy who I thought that, did, kind of made a statement last week was their running back, Robinson, the freshman. Short, stocky running back. He had 3 touchdowns, Mars. He was really solid in the red zone for them, getting those tough, gritty yards that you need in that part of the field. But Dobbs Ferry, we talked about on the defense. They gave up a lot of big plays in the running game against Bronxville. So I'm expecting Valhalla to do a bunch of mix of formations and try to get those playmakers as much touches as possible, including those little duo at quarterback, and see if they can, see if Dobbs Ferry cleaned up their tackling. That's what I'm expecting from Valhalla. Defensively, Marsh, again, you're stopping the option. Last week, you were seeing heavy spread with quarterback runs, quarterback throws. You're not going to get the same scheme, right? You're going to get now more condensed. So the most important thing is for these linebackers to stop the Dans, right? Brian Dan, Harry Dan, and then that what leads to McGovern off the play action and the pitch sweeps and stuff like that. But you got to stop internally and then outside. So these linebackers, including the outside linebackers, O'Neal, Melvin, and including Sullivan, who inside, I thought he had a really nice game last week. So, he was very active. I think he had over 10 tackles. He's going to be important for them too. So this is going to be important for Valhalla. The linebackers are going to have to make the plays. Mars, what are your thoughts on Valhalla?
Yeah, for Valhalla, they kind of have a mixed bag on the offense. Your wing T, some options, some spread, but at the end of the day, they're really trying to just run the ball, no matter what they line up in. And I really think it's going to really depend on the offensive line having a good push, and also just having these skill players really make plays. I think O'Neal did a good job being a quarterback and running the ball. And like you said, Robinson was definitely showing out as a freshman playmaker. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And you're really going to test Dobbs Ferry to see whether or not they are bouncing back into their groove. I mean, they showed last week that they missed a lot of tackles. And you have to really see whether or not they're still in that funk or not. Yep. And I think that's going to be kind of the test of this game, right? The matchup, really, to say is I'll give my own matchup. Dobbs Ferry's defense against this rush attack. Are they going to step up? And when you look at now Valhalla's defense, I mean, it's really about controlling the Dans, and Bronxville did a very good job of doing so, and that's why they were able to win. And I think that if you can really be disciplined, stop the option, stop the Dans from making big plays, you can definitely explode on offense.
If you make them, and if you get them down early and they have to become a passing team, that'll definitely be in Valhalla's benefit. Since you gave a matchup, I won't give mine. I think that's a good one. Let's go to another game, Mars. We're going to the B class now. Hen Hud 1-1 at Pleasantville, who is 2-0. These teams have not played each other since 2004, but both tough teams, and both had some heartbreaking loss and a nice win as well. When you look at last week, Hen Hud lost to Byram Hills. Pleasantville had that nice win against Pearl River. But let's start with Hen Hud. Offensively, they run the wing team, Mars, and it's not going to be easy running against this Pleasantville front because they have some meat, they have some size to them, and they have Jack Collins, who I think is one of the more underrated defensive linemen, who penetrates really well. Linebackers are also very active, so these guys are pretty good in between the tackles, stopping the run. But I do think they're going to test them off tackle and on the edge because if I saw Pearl River make some plays. There was a little bit to the outside. They were passing it, which that's what Hen Hud doesn't really do that well. So what are other ways you can? Get in front of the chains, right? Win on first down. Win on second if it's 2nd and 7. Get to 2nd and 3rd and 4, right? Because then the play action works, right? Then you can really sucker them in and hit those play action passes because Hen Hud, if they're going to just go into pass attack, which you saw against Byram Hills towards the end when they were getting down, that's not what they do best. Their best is running the ball, staying ahead of the chains. That's what they do best, and that's what I think they're going to try to do. Be better at winning early downs. And I do think Pleasantville poses a big threat up front, but not as big of a threat as Byram Hill. So I do think with that offensive line, who I think has some good size to it, they can run a little bit better. But I do think they'll attack off tackle, especially with guys like Artope and Travis. And then that's when the counters come. Run some counters with Travis. Run some counters with Cepeda. And try to keep Pleasantville off balance in the run game. They know you want to run. So how can you attack them in different ways? That is how, right? Off tackle to the edge and then come up the counter back inside. And I think they'll be okay. But they have to prevent the turnovers because that was big. When they're throwing the ball, they turn the ball over too much. Can't do it. So be efficient in the passing game. You don't have to be a throwing team. That's not who you are, right? But you have to be efficient and not turn the ball over, not get these big negative plays. Defensively, Mars, I thought they battled against Byram Hills all game. But they wore down at some point. But, to me, it's all about stopping May. That's going to be the number one issue for them to stop Pleasantville behind this big offensive line. They're going to try to test you running the ball and force Pleasantville to be a passing team. I know McDermott made a really nice play. I know LaCapria made a nice throw to him. And they made some nice plays in the passing game. But you could tell Pleasantville's a running football team, right? They want to run with May. They want to run with Picard. And they want that to be the passing to be the supplement to that. So if you can force them into second and third and long, I think you have a better chance. Mars, what are your thoughts on Hen Hud?
Yeah, Hen Hud is a good team in my opinion. I mean, they have a wing T style offense, which they're not looking to pass. I mean, they have utilized the run pretty well, but the problem is you go against Byram Hills, who has a very, very good front. It was difficult for them to really progress forward and move forward. And I think that they're going to now try to go back to the roots, try to test to see whether Pleasantville can handle the run attack that they have. And then once you can kind of win on those first and second downs, the playbook then opens up.
Yep.
But the problem is if you don't gain a good amount of yards, then that means you're going to have to pass, and that's not necessarily what they want to do. Defensively, I mean, as you mentioned, Pleasantville is more of a run-styled offense. But the question is going to be, what type of pass offense is coming? Is LaCapri going to make the throws, or the playmakers like McDermott going to make those catches, make the moves? That's going to be the question. And I think if you're Hen Hud, you look at, say, hey, let's stop the run. Let's force him. Let's see if LaCapria can make the throws, and then we'll go from there. And that's just that would be the kind of the game plan.
And Pleasantville offensively, I mean, we know what their strength, right? They have a big offensive line. They can run the ball well. They do the play action out of it. And then they'll throw different stuff at you. They'll go into some spread looks, but the big thing is running the football for them. And that's with May, Picard, like we talked about. And then making, on the outside, they have guys who can be playmakers, right? McDermott had that huge touchdown off a bubble. And he's proven now of 2 weeks that he can make plays like that. So this is definitely somebody on the outside you want to get involved with out of the play action, but it's getting May going. It's getting these offensive line to wear on the opposing defense. But Hen Hud has size, so it's not going to be that easy, right? So, what can you do, right? It's going to be strength on strength, in my opinion. It's going to be two veteran lines going at it. So we're going to see which one comes out on top. But you have to stick with who you are, which is running the ball and then getting those tosses to McDermott. I like the bubble tosses that they did with him. Let him catch it and make a couple plays because that's worked a few times. And Safea, another big body target, throw it to him, right? Run those 50-50 balls. Don't take unnecessary risks, in my opinion, right? Because you have a good defense. Be smart with the football. Pleasantville has proven that they kind of want to grind games out, right? They're not going to be a high-scoring offense. I know they did against Putt Valley, but that's not really who they are. They're a grinded-out football team. Defensively, again, you got to stop the wing team. So you got to protect. Expect a lot of down blocks on your D linemen. Expect some trap blocks, kick-out blocks, and then getting those playmakers in space. So to protect the C-gaps, protect the edge. And again, we talked about it. Force Hen Hud to be a passing team. Make the quarterback beat you. Make the passing attack beat you because, that's where I believe they're most uncomfortable, Mars. What are your thoughts on Pleasantville?
Yeah, Pleasantville has a big offensive line, and they definitely utilize the run very well. They have a lot of weapons in May and Picard that have proven to be very dynamic runners. And there's also a lot of other guys that, Cotter, who kind of got touches too.
Yes.
And you have just a lot of bodies that can move, right? Very elusive. And the offensive line is definitely the key cog of this offense. But as you mentioned, they do have a lot of receivers. I mean, having Jude Safea, McDermott as being two very key outside pass catchers, they can make a lot of moves. And the question is going to be, how well do they develop the run, right? If they can move the ball on the run, it opens up the pass. It opens up those outside throws, which we saw last week definitely proved to be very efficient. I mean, especially with how McDermott scored. Mm-hmm. And defensively, I mean, it's about stopping the run, forcing and HUD to do something that they're not fond of doing, which is pass the ball a lot. And you have secondary that can not say lock down anybody, but they have a good enough secondary because of the front can bring the pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack Collins is a beast, and I think that he can get to the quarterback. You just need to kind of force them to do something that they don't want to do.
Yeah. Let's go to our A matchup, Mars, on the next one. Clarkstown South 1-1 at Brewster, who is also 1-1. These teams have not played each other since 2004, and these are two teams trying to rebound. I mean, Clarkstown South got smoked by Spring Valley in the second half of their game, and Brewster got smoked by Somers. So these are two teams trying to rebound. I think they're both really solid teams, and both are candidates to have a bounce-back week. But let's start with Clarkstown South, Mars. Offensively, when I watch them, turnovers really hurt them. Again, turn the ball over too many times, whether it's fumbles, whether it's interceptions, whether it's big negative plays. And what surprised me was their inability to establish the run consistently. And I'm expecting a bounce back for that. Now, the passing attack has been a little inconsistent. There's sometimes it looks really good. They hit some big-time plays. And then there's sometimes where, we miss dudes or dudes drop the ball or dudes not running a great route. So it hasn't been as consistent as I thought it would be. But the run attack, I think they have size up front, and I think they have a powerful back in Mariah, and I think that's the best remedy for everything, right? Because if they get good, consistent running, whether it's up the middle, up the gut, which won't be easy against this Brewster team, but on the edge, underneath the defensive ends, whether kick them out and run underneath them, or give a guy like Galizia the ball outside, Martins the ball outside, that will open things up for them, in my opinion. Establish the run, get in front of the chains. I know they got down early, especially, not really early, in the second half, and it was kind of forcing them to throw the ball more. So, try to get it back into a groove, running the ball, throwing it off that, right, doing the RPO stuff. Get in a consistent rhythm that they could not have found. They really haven't found it in 2 weeks. But I thought the running attack would be better, and I think they got to go back to it. I think getting the ball to Mariah behind this offensive line, that I think the offensive line needs to step up, and I think they will this week. They're going to have to if they're going to have a chance. But it's going to be against a difficult front with aggressive linebacker core, so we're going to see. Offensively. Defensively, they gave up way too many big plays. I mean, at one point it was just big runs on the outside, big runs up the middle, and it was just too much. They gave up too much, and it put the offense in a bind, and they definitely have to be better. Now, Brewster has good speed, or a guy like Rhodes, and they have a solid front. And they have a quarterback, if you give him time, who could throw. But I don't think they have the same kind of speed that Spring Valley has. Spring Valley has a bunch of weapons with a bunch of different speed. I don't think they have as much. But they do have a front that can bully you. So this defensive line, who I thought did not play that great last week, I think, again, they need to step up. This front seven, that's where the strength is on Clarkstown South. They need to come up to the dance, and it's going to be against a tough offensive line in Brewster with a quarterback who can throw if he has time. So they got to get pressured on him. I didn't think they did a good enough job week one, and I'm expecting them to play better this week. Mars, what are your thoughts on Clarkstown South?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they definitely didn't have any sort of groove going. I really think that I really like this team. I think they have a lot of skill, a lot of talent behind them. It really just did not show this past game, and I think it really has to start with getting that group back, really getting the momentum on your side, having a good pace when it comes to offensive movement, mixing in some good runs and some throws. Yep. I think passing was very inconsistent on their end, and I think they got punked. And I feel like that this is kind of a game for them to kind of pull back the books and make sure, all right, how do we bounce back? Yep. What is the best thing that we can do to do so? And I really think for them to kind of get that groove going, it starts with the run. Win the front, run outside, then open up the pass.
Yeah,
and just
and
make
they have
those
a good quarterback. They have a good quarterback. They have weapons on the outside, but something is not clicking.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the best way. Running is an easier way to get yards, too.
Yeah, because then at the end of the day, when you at least run a little bit to establish the run, it does open up some good matchups for your receivers, right? And then by doing so, you can kind of get more open guys. The quarterback and receiver can now make a better connection, and the groove is going. And it comes to defensively, limiting the amount of big plays is going to be crucial, right? That's the biggest thing. I feel like it was just way too easy to score on this defense, and that's just not who they are. I think it all starts with winning up front, winning the trenches, and then once you kind of gain some momentum back, give your offense more time on the field, then you're cooking. I think that's really what it is. Yeah, no, absolutely. Going to Brewster, this is another team that needs to bounce back, and a team that I like.
offensively, they just couldn't get things going last week. They were up against probably the best defensive front in Class A, so it really made things difficult. They didn't get a first down for almost 3 quarters. So I'm expecting them to play better as well. I think the offensive line is going up against a front that is not as good, but I do think is pretty stout. So I'm expecting Brewster to spread it out and run the ball out of the spread. Similar, it's a different offense in Spring Valley. Spring Valley is fast paced, hurry it up, never huddle. Right? Brewster does similar spread concepts, but I do think that they can take some things from that, which is get the ball out of your hand quickly to your targets and make them make plays and run out of the spread. So run out of the spread, but Rhodes is that home run hitter for them at the running back spot. Once he gets into open space, he can really make things happen. The question I have is, can he run? Can they develop a power running game? Is going to be the question to me, because I think that was something that was intriguing that Spring Valley had success on with Clarkstown South was running with power up front. I think offensive line wise, we're going to see how they match up against South. But again, this is another group that needs to step up the offensive line. Got to step up than was last week. And really everybody, when you get beat like that, what really makes a team good, in my opinion, was how do you respond to getting your butt kicked, right? That to me shows the character of a team. And this is a similar situation for Brewster's offense. You got your butt kicked in the game. How do you respond? And I'm expecting everyone to try to play better in this one. Defensively, Mars, it starts up front. Again, I think front seven-wise, they have a lot of talent. It starts with Milano and Borsari. They have to cause a lot of havoc, right? They have to get to the quarterback. If they're going to pass a lot, Clarkstown South, you got to get to the quarterback. You got to cause pressure because that will force turnovers. So I'm expecting it up front on the front line to cause some havoc with the linebackers who are going to have to attack Mariah, who is one of the better backs. You don't want him getting to the second level because that's how he really hurts you. He runs with power. He knows how to deal it. So I'm interested to see the defense, how they responded as well, because I thought they battled Somers for a while, but at one point they got worn down. So I'm interested to see how the defense battles for 4 quarters. And they're going to have to, especially starting up front with these guys getting after the quarterback. Mars, what are your thoughts on Brewster?
Yeah, Brewster went up against possibly the best team in A right now. Yeah. They're on a roll. Defensively, they're kind of suffocating teams. We watched the Manpack game, we watched his most recent game against Brewster. It was kind of domination to a certain extent. But like you said, Brewster was in competition for a time, and then it just got out of hand. Yeah. And I think that for Brewster, just like South, they needed a bounce back win, and unfortunately, they're going both against both a good teams. Squad. It's a tough one, and I think the offensive line, as you mentioned, is going to have a not saying easy time, but easier compared to playing against Somers. And it really starts with developing the run, and I feel like we say this all the time, but really developing the run game by spreading South out. Having your playmakers win those matchups in the open field is definitely a way to go, because spread out the defense, make it a little more difficult for them to key in on your best backs. And I think that having that, and then you can open up more facets of your offense will definitely give you back that groove. Just like how I mentioned with South, the same type of formula, really. And defensively, it's about winning the line of scrimmage. You have these good. You have a good front seven. I really like Milano. I really think he's doing it. He's a beast. He's a very skillful player. It's really about now. We're seeing that progress. Win the line of scrimmage. Keep the offense bottled up. Keep them on the inside, and then give your offense more opportunities. Yeah,
and again, when we talk about established run, if your passing attack is killing it, I say sling it, right? Yeah. Sling the ball. More people are passing now than ever. But when your pass attack is not doing well, you have to be able to run the ball and get yourself into manageable situations. If you're 2nd and 5 compared to 2nd and 9, is a big difference. Or if you throw the ball on first, and I'm down for being aggressive on first down, but at some point you have to be able to get the hard-earned runs to keep your offense on the field. Yeah. Right? So that's going to be big. Let's go to another, and before I do that, the matchup that I'm looking at, Mars, this Clarkstown South offensive line that I expect to make a jump versus this Brewster front seven on defense that I'm also expecting. This is going to be the clash right here. This is the game within the game. Let's go to the Independent League, Mars. Ramapo 1-0 at Peekskill 1-1. This is an interesting Independent League matchup. I think these are 2 solid independent teams. Ramapo is 1-0 versus Peekskill. They haven't played since 2016 when Ramapo won. Last week, Ramapo beat Ossining. Peekskill lost to Mount Vernon in their new turf, which is a beautiful field, by the way. They're going to be playing another game here. And for me, Ramapo offensively, Richie Lewis played his first game. He missed more than a year with an ACL tear, Mars, and he was impressive to me. He had 3 touchdowns. They like to spread the wealth around. Griffin, Etienne, Cardachon, they all caught a touchdown. So it wasn't just one guy that they targeted. He spread the wealth. I was impressed, and I was even more impressed by the solid play of the offensive line, because you can't throw the ball around if you can't protect the quarterback. So I was really impressed with this group offensively, and I thought they have solid size up front. I'm really interested to see them going up against this Peekskill defense, who also has some size. But do they try to, what hurt Peekskill was running the ball out of the spread. That's what really hurt. That's what Mount Vernon hurt them. I'm interested to see if Ramapo is going to continue going the air raid, or do they try to mix in a little more balanced attack and try to run the ball more out of the spread looks. That's going to be interesting to me and something I'm looking forward to. Defensively, Mars, Peekskill really likes to play fast. They like to keep a high up-tempo. When you play these up-tempo teams, to me, winning first down is huge because, it's almost like basketball when you play it that fast. Once they start going, it's hard to stop. That's when the momentum comes, right? So once they start going, it's really hard to stop. But if you could stop them early, right? If you get them into, creating negative plays, that's when, things start to slow down. And that's what would be best for Ramapo's defense against a fast, high pair. I'd say be a little aggressive on first down. Force a negative play or two, and it'll slow things down for you and make things easier. Mars, what are your thoughts on Ramapo?
Yeah, Ramapo the offense definitely showed out. I was very impressed at how efficient they were. I think the offensive line played very, very well. A lot of these skill backs did very well. I think they started going into their full motions. I feel like going this air Coryell type of offense it's very pretty to see. Whenever you see it, effective. Yeah. Whenever it's effectively being done, it's really impressive. And I think that I could see that happening again. But the question, as you mentioned before, is how are they going to mix it up? Are they going to kind of have some runs with these passing rate? And I think that doing so might give you more of a flexibility of kind of situational wise.
And it won't. I don't think it'll be as easy because I think Peekskill does have some DBs. So when we go to Peekskill, again offensively, we talked about how fast they are, but they are like They have a couple guys that really stand out, and that's their running back wide receiver, Tinsley, who makes a lot of plays for them, and their quarterback, Ritter. Those guys are really a dynamic duo. But to me, up front is where this game is going to be won because I do think Peekskill has some good size up front. And they're going to have to control the game a little bit. They're going to have to make a statement, and we'll see what happens with that. I think that's going to be the biggest part of their game plan. And we know what they want to do. They want to play fast. They want to put up a lot of points. So try to be, be efficient. Avoid the negative plays. Avoid the turnovers, right? Because, like I said, when your offense gets going, like Peekskill's offense can, it could be put a lot of pressure on a defense, and they obviously want to duplicate that. Defensively, Mars, to me, if Ramapo is going to try to throw the ball with Lewis, who did a really good job, they also have a guy like Hilaire who can run the ball, and that's what I'm interested to see if they're going to give him more carries. They got to get pressure up front. Right, you got to get pressure. Don't let Lewis sit back and throw the ball because they got some skill guys at Ramapo who, if they can get the ball in their hand in space, can create a lot of plays. So I'm interested to see how Peekskill is by bringing pressure. Are they going to go into more of a max coverage? I'm interested to see that dynamic because I'm not exactly sure what Peekskill will do. But if I were to guess, if you have faith in your front four, let them get after the without bringing pressure, right, and bring as many DBs back. And try to see if you can get some hands on some balls and make some interceptions. Mars, what are your thoughts on Peekskill?
Yeah, I think Peekskill is going to follow exactly the strategy that you just said. I think that they're going to try to send the pressure. And I think that if you can do so, you'll definitely throw Ramapo off their game. And I think that, granted, Val's Ramapo are definitely adding some run too, but I feel like they know their bread and butter. They like to throw the ball, and I think that they're going to stick with it. Peekskill needs to stop how much they pass. And if they do so, it'll give their offense the ability to get back on the field, especially with this high momentum type of scheme that they use.
Yeah, and, for me, the matchup is these Peekskill skill guys versus the Ramapo secondary. That to me, is going to be an interesting dynamic and the matchup that I'm looking for in the game. Mars, let's go to AA, and this is a matchup in AA. New Rochelle 2-0 at Mamaroneck, who's 1-1. New Rochelle is 7-0 versus Mamaroneck since 2004, And last week, New Rochelle beat Yonkers Forest. Mamaroneck lost to Newburgh in a tough game. And Nurshell did beat Mamaroneck in 2019. But let's start with Nurshell. Right, offensively, you have to give a big, we knew this offensive line is big, right? They're strong, they move bodies. Jennings has been a stud. And we talked about he was Frank's finest. We knew that he was a talented back. He had 3 touchdowns last week. This kid's really a slasher, right? He takes one cut and go, and he's really deadly off tackle because he has nice balance. He does run with strength, so he's not easy to bring down, especially by smaller guys. And when he gets into that open field, Mars, he has that home run speed, right? He's a game wrecker. And he has been he's been the lead back for them. And I can imagine he's going to continue to do that and attack the C gaps and the edge of this defense. And a guy that runs with power, Irizarry, he's kind of the power back to them, right? He's a well-built kid. He's the guy who can run in between the guards, and he can get those hard-earned runs. But Jennings can do it as well, but Irizarry is kind of more of the power back. So I'm interested to see a dynamic mix between those two guys. And then obviously Gary Phillips, who makes plays on special teams. He had a kick return for a touchdown. He's a guy you'd run jet sweeps to and throw to because he's another guy with that 4.4 and change speed that can be a real game wrecker, and he has been so far. And then that opens up the play action, right? So, what hurt Mamaroneck, Mars, is quarterback runs, off platform. So, like, Newberg was trying to throw it, saw nothing there, quarterback ran off, and they made some plays out of it. I'm interested to see if, Nurshell, hey, if things break down, take off. But these guys got receivers. Like, Nurshell has a guy like Gregory that you could throw to, and the passing attack worked. I'm interested to see how Nurshell's pass attack develops because that's the only thing I think lacking right now behind is getting that consistently. But they have the guys to do it. Defensively, Mars, to me, it's I'm interested to see the health of Jack Benton from Mamaroneck. Didn't see him much last week, so I'm not sure exactly what the status on that. If he's not playing, it's a big boost for Nurshell. If he is playing, it's a big boost for Mamaroneck. But to me, whether he plays or not, you have to stop the run and tackle well in open field, right? Mamaroneck goes into the spread. They'll sling the ball around, but they'll also hand it off to, I think, one of the more underrated backs. And I feel this is going to be a linebackers game. Inside linebackers and outside linebackers are Irizarry, Smith, Gregory, in the defensive backfield, Jennings. You're going to need these outside linebackers to get pressured when they try to throw, and you're going to have to, get these linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage when they run the ball. Mamaroneck is not a veteran offensive line, right? I think they've been pretty solid, but we saw a lot of pressure on Mamaroneck from Newberg. They created turnovers. I'm looking at Nurshell to kind of do a similar formula. Get pressure on the quarterback, get them in long down situation, and let their secondary ball hawk in those long downs. Mars, what are your thoughts on Nurshell?
I mean, Nurshell has just a run attack is just phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, the offensive line is a force. You have these trio of backs that can just kind of do whatever they desire. I mean, Jennings is just is an animal. I mean, and then you see like how speedy Gary Phillips can be. It's scary. I mean, Nurshell's always had a stable of backs. I mean, that was kind of always their thing. And it's just another year of Nurshell just having just this crew of skill players that are now backed up by an offensive line that just moves people. Offensively, I mean, they're just going to continually attack the C gaps, attack the outside, allow their skill players to kind of make the play. Defensively, I mean, like you said, it's about stopping the run, and it's going to be about linebacker play and also the front, really the front four or really the rest of the front to make sure that they win the trenches. I mean, if they can do so, I feel like, as long as you bring pressure to the quarterback, I mean, your secondary is top notch. I think that they can make a play on any ball.
Yeah, they can force turnovers, which will give this offense more opportunities. Would be bad news for Mamaroneck. Going to Mamaroneck, Mars, offensively, I don't know the status of Jack Benton because he's one of the best players in the class. So obviously having him will be huge, and obviously not having him will hurt. But I got to give credit to their running back, Sanjam or Sanram. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name, and I apologize to him. But I thought he's been, he had a rush touchdown last week. These first 2 games, I thought he's been very solid. I like his ability to kind of squeeze through holes, and he also has some solid balance. He doesn't, run on initial. He doesn't go down on initial contact. So I think this guy is an underrated back so far this year, and the running game is going to be really important because you're going to spread out. What they want to do is spread out Nurshell, which is good. But again, these backs, you got to take one cut and go. Nurshell is too fast that if you dance around, if you try to cut all the way back, it's really difficult to do. So make one cut, get upfield as much as you can, get as many yards as you can, and obviously this is going to be a huge test for this offensive line, Mars, with the linebackers and defensive linemen that they have. Nurshell's D-line is not the fastest D-line, but they got bulk, and they're big, and the linebackers are really fast. So it's a nice dynamic that they have. So it's going to be really important to run the ball. And another guy that I got to give credit to is their quarterback, Malice. We thought he was going to have a solid year so far, and he's been solid. The biggest thing, though, they're going to throw the ball. He's getting Mamaroneck. Doesn't have, if Benton's not playing, they're not the most explosive, but they have big body receivers, right, who can make 50-50 catches. And Mouse has done a good job getting them the ball. You can't turn the ball over against New Rochelle, Mars. It's devastating. Mamaroneck had some bad turnovers against Newburgh. They cannot have similar turnovers, or they don't have a chance in this one. Defensively, Mars, the big thing is preventing the big play. It's a four-quarter fight to prevent a big play, but if you break contain and you give up these long touchdown runs, it's really devastating, and it puts extra pressure on your offense. Will now have to throw the ball more, and that's when turnovers get created. So it's a dynamic where you got to prevent big plays. Force New Rochelle to nickel and dime all the way down the field. Force them to run in between the tackles all game, but you can't let them get outside because that's when those game-busting plays happen. Marsh, what are your thoughts on Mamaroneck?
Yeah, I mean, Mamaroneck is going to try to spread. I feel like that's just their mojo. That's what they do best. And a problem is against New Rochelle, you cannot try to run outside. You got to just try to get as much yards as possible, play downhill.
But elaborate what you mean run outside, because you do want to test outside.
I'm not saying. You're not going to just outrun New Rochelle. Like that's just not going to happen. Like the speed of New Rochelle to try to cut one way and then cut back. That's not going to happen. But you can definitely test the C gaps. You can definitely try to run underneath some of these outside defenders. Yeah, that's fine. I just think that you're not going to outrun New Rochelle defense that has been this lethal, especially with their speed. And defensively, as you kind of mentioned, you have to be a bend but don't break type of defense. New Rochelle's going to get yards. Yeah. That's just going to happen. But you have to stop the big play. Create disruption on their normal flow of just trying to ground and pound, get to the outside. You have to disrupt that, and then you have to try to force a turnover. And you mentioned the offense. You can't give up a ball. Yeah. You can't give up a turnover.
Win the turnover battle.
Yeah, you have to cause New Rochelle to make a mistake and just be efficient, right? And that's New Rochelle is difficult to win against. Yeah. Very well coached, very good skill players. The problem is just you have to be as disciplined as possible and be efficient.
Yeah, if you're going to pull the upset, you got to win the turnover battle, and you need big plays from your best. You need big plays from your best players. A guy like Alex Fernie on the edge, he needs to cause some havoc in this game defensively if they're going to have a chance. To me, the matchup, Mars, this pass attack from Mamaroneck, they like to throw the ball versus this New Rochelle secondary. I'm interested to see which one caves because that, to me, is a really interesting fight right there. Let's go to our B matchup, Mars. And this is our sixth game that we've gone over. Didn't get the game of the week, but it was close. I was really close to giving it this one. Ardsley 2-0 at Westlake, who is 0-1. Westlake was on the COVID pause. Ardsley defeated Putt Valley, excuse me.
Yeah.
I had a brain fart there. Defeated Putt Valley last week. And this has been a very competitive matchup, Mars. Ardsley and Westlake have been a bit of a rivalry, 6-6 versus each other since 2004. But Ardsley has won 4 straight versus Westlake in most recent memory, including 2 wins in 2019. Ardsley is on this ridiculous streak of winning, I believe, 21 straight versus Section 1 opponents. Ardsley is one of the finest, programs that we have in Section 1 in the B class. But let's stick with Ardsley and see if Westlake can upset them. Offensively, you have to give a big shout-out to their offensive line, right? We thought they would be a strength to them, but there were some questions with some of the kids who graduated. They have been very impressive, Mars. They're not towering figures, but they have real thickness to them. They're strong. They move bodies. And they also done a pretty good job in pass protection. So they've been a real well-rounded offensive line. You got to give credit to the offensive line coach. And then they hurt you multiple ways, right? Liberis with power running. And then, you'll get a guy like Jack Phelan, who's been really impressive on outside runs, right? He has 3 touchdowns, 2 last week. Another guy that's been really impressive to keep an eye on for this game. But I also got to give a shout-out to their young quarterback, Balarge. This kid has 5 total touchdowns, Mars, 4 in the air the last 2 weeks. He's been very impressive. He's been decisive. He hasn't made too many mistakes. He's been good, and he obviously has some weapons. Watson, he's one of our favorite weapons out there. But there's other guys. Right? We talk about, guys like Peterson, Jones, and we talked about Watson, who was a stud, last week. He has some weapons. This is a well-rounded offensive Ardsley team. That's not a flashy team, but they could beat you multiple ways. And I'm expecting them to have a balanced attack at Westlake. Try to muscle Westlake, I think, is what they're going to be the best method with this offensive line and some of the power running. But they can beat you multiple ways. And if they just prevent turnovers, I think they'll have some success offensively. Defensively, Marsh, stopping the wing tee. You're going to see some wing tee. You're going to see some spread. Obviously, the biggest target, starting with the quarterback, Sardo. But I tell you what, I thought Westlake in their first game was impressive. They have speed, Westlake. I think they have a couple guys that can hurt you on the outside. So the big thing to me is you got probably the strength of your team is at the linebackers and up the middle, hard to run in between the tackles. Make sure you don't let them break contain, right? Funnel them into those guys. That's going to be the big key for Ardsley is just make sure they funnel in. And obviously, you want to force them to be a passing team. That's they have to be successful at it to prove that they can do it consistently. And I think Ardsley's going to attack that, Mars. What are your thoughts on Ardsley?
Yeah, Ardsley offensive line has been very impressive. And I think the biggest thing I kind of have to look at is, you're going to just probably have to just move Westlake. I mean, that's really their goal this week. And kind of the matchup for me would be that, the offensive line has to win the trenches against this front. And I think that if they can do so, it definitely opens up the offensive play calling to do multiple different things. But I just think it makes life a lot easier if you can do so. And I defensively try to contain this run-heavy offense of Westlake. I think they're going to use Sardo in all different ways. Yep. If you can contain Sardo, make someone else beat you, then I think that you'll have a better chance of winning.
Yeah, and I thought Byram Hills did a good job, and then I'm thinking Ardsley is going to try to do something similar to that. But Westlake has speed, and they have other guys who can make some big plays too. But let's talk about Westlake, right? To me, don't be discouraged if you start off slow, right? They've just been on COVID pause for a brief period of time. Don't hang your head if things go slow. Keep running your offense, right? Hit them on the edge. Attack, because Ardsley's going to be tough up the middle with their linebackers and defensive tackle. Hit them on the edge, right? Get Sardo out in space. Get some of these other running backs in space that show that they have good speed. I think the advantage you have is your athleticism and speed. So use it, right? Use it in all the different facets. Attack them on the edge. It's got to be a collective effort. It's not going to be just Sardo winning this game. So you need these guys to win one-on-one, make people miss, right? Make some plays out there. You need your backs to really step up because I think this offensive line is still solid. So I think it's going to be a real battle up front. I think there'll be opportunities for these guys, especially on the outside, and they have to hit on some throws, right? They got to make some plays in the passing game off of play action. So this is a game I'm really interested to see this dynamic. Westlake offensively. Defensively, I tell you what, Ardsley, like we talked about, they like to come at you with a balanced attack, but I'm expecting a bunch of power football against Westlake. They have an explosive front seven, Westlake, right? I think they have a solid secondary, right? If they could cause penetration and create negative plays and kind of put the game into the young quarterback in Ballarge's hands, who has been good, right? But he's still a young guy. Right, so if you want someone to beat you, you want it to be a younger guy to prove that he can, and get your good secondary involved, right? Match up with their wide receivers, but you don't want to get the power run over you because that'll put you in a bad spot. So this defensive line, and you don't have the biggest size, but what do you have? You have speed. You can penetrate with your speed, penetrate with your hands, get these linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage. I think this is a solid unit, but it's going to have to be a group effort on both sides of the ball for them to beat this Ardsley team. Mars, what are your thoughts on Westlake?
Yeah, Westlake has a lot of skill. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Sardo is a very talented player. We've put him as one of our Frank's finest. He's lethal, and I think that you need to kind of utilize your skill players as much as possible. I think this is going to be a battle of the trenches. Whichever offensive line wins will definitely have the big advantage on the offensive point of view. And I think that when it comes to the defense, you have to kind of try to limit how much you get pushed back. It's going to be a big game for the front seven. I think the way Ardsley's O-line's playing, if you can stand pat, force Ardsley to throw to your strength, which is your secondary, then you'll have a shot.
Yeah. To me, the matchup, this Westlake D-line versus that Ardsley O-line, that's going to be the one that decides it, man. Let's go to our game of the week, Mars, and this is an A matchup. It's Yorktown 1-1 at Rye. That's 2-0. This is a rematch of the Class A title in 2019, which Rye won. These teams have been competitive versus each other, but Rye is 5-3 versus Yorktown since 2004, including that win in the championship, where they won 41-7. So let's start with Yorktown, the underdog. Offensively, I thought they had a really nice bounce back game, starting with the offensive line. I thought they did a good job moving people and creating space that they didn't in the first game. So it was a good bounce back game for them. They deserve credit. But I got to start with their quarterback, Meyerless. This kid had 2 rushing touchdowns. He showed he was moxie, and quite frankly, he showed he had cojones, right? He was a tough runner. And he's going to need to keep bringing that because that definitely helps this offense. But I do think that, again, there's going to be a heavy rush attack. They're not going to try to throw a lot. They can throw very few, but if they are going to throw, it's going to be on rollouts to give their quarterback a run-pass option. And you're going to see, again, some heavy McKnight, some heavy McCarr, Meyerless on the edge. But they will need to hit some big pass plays to keep this defense honest. Rye likes to put a lot of speed out there, so it's not going to be easy running to the outside on them. Let's see if they can try to run with some power. That's going to be the big thing. Defensively, Mars, I think this is their strongest unit, Yorktown. They're a well-coached unit led by their, some of their coaches, Capelli, Serrar. They have to stop this rush attack. This rush attack is deadly for Rye. It's one of the best in the class, if not the best. Whaling has been, a beast, and we'll talk about him. But expect some 5-man, 6-man fronts, Mars. If they go into some spread looks, I'm expecting Yorktown to bring some pressure, right? Make the quarterback make quick decisions, and gamble with their secondary. I think their secondary is really solid. They can play some man-to-man. And I think, you're going to have to be aggressive to stop this offense for Rye. And I think Yorktown will be aggressive. Mars, what are your thoughts on Yorktown?
Yeah, Yorktown's has proven to be a very efficient team on offense. A lot of run. Not a lot of it, not as much pass as you would like, but as you mentioned, the rollouts have been the really most effective thing on their passes. And I think that you need to kind of mix it up. You can't just be dependent on a heavy just run alone.
Yep.
You do need to make plays on the passing game. But the story is going to be about your defense. Your defense has been rocking, and I think that this game will definitely hinge on whether the defense is going to be continuing their momentum or if they aren't. And it all starts with stopping the run. And on top of that, you need to hit on your blitzes, hit on getting to the quarterback, and because your secondary has been very good.
Yep.
I just think that you need to kind of cause some pressure up front, make the quarterbacks make a mistake, and then you can kind of give your offense more chances to make those big plays.
Yeah. If this game's in the 20s, high 20s, I'm expecting Rye is going to be the winner in this one. But let's go to Rye. Offensively, it has to start with this offensive line that has been a pleasant surprise for this team. There was a lot of questions about this unit. This unit has been impressive, Mark. Guys like Cunningham, Ben Elson, Surhoff, Garnett, Billingsley. Those guys have really led this charge, and they've opened holes for their stud running back, who's now, in my opinion, a top 3 in Class A, Whaling. He's had 400-plus yards, Mars, and 5 touchdowns in 2 games. This team last year was they had a balanced attack, but they really were throwing the ball all over the place with a bunch of skill guys on the outside. This is now becoming a running show, and the pass is complement off of that. But he's been absolutely sensational. But they do have a really good weapon on the outside in Lavelle, who's made a bunch of plays too. And these young quarterbacks continue to get better. If they can just continue to get better and more efficient, Mars, this offense can become even more dynamic if they could bring more of a balanced attack and teams start loading up in the box, which I'm expecting Yorktown to do. So that's going to be interesting out there. Defensively, Mars, they have a lot of speed. They like to bring in more athletes, smaller, not the biggest guys, but long guys. And when I say that, you think that team would be running on them, right? But they only allowed 24 yards rushing last week. So these guys swarm to the football. They've been very aggressive. They really like to get at you and get you in passing down. So these athletic guys in the secondary and linebackers can make plays on the ball and force turnovers. That's what Rye wants to do. It's not going to change. And until a team proves that they can run them over, this is what the formula is going to be. And it's been a formula that works for them, Mars. What are your thoughts on Rye?
Rye, I'm really going to key in on the offense. I really think that when you saw the amount of players that were leaving, seniors going away, and specifically on the offensive line, you thought that this was going to be a depleted offense, but they are clearly not depleted. Granted, the scheme has changed. I feel like it's like Rye was always known for now they're more balanced. Yeah. But
they're throwing the ball a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of throwing, but now it's a run. It's a run first show and then pass second maybe. And I think that the passing has been very complementary to their runs, and they've been dominating on the run. And I think that this has kind of just made Rye now really show you how Rye is so talented that they can kind of do a bunch of different things. Defensively, it's really going to be about causing disruption. I really think that they need to kind of stop the run, force Yorkton to do something that they aren't really keen on doing
being
and
a passing team.
being a passing team against
speed.
Yeah, against your speed. I mean, and that's just that'd be my strategy going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, the player to watch has to be their stud back in Whaling. He's been absolutely sensational, and I want to see kind of his encore. What is going to be the third game? Can this stout Yorktown defense stop him, or can he make some plays against his defense? And to me, this matchup, I'm looking at this Yorktown pass attack versus Rise pass defense because I do think Rise is going to do whatever it takes to stop the run, force Yorktown to make plays in the passing game, and I'm interested to see how they respond. That's going to be the big matchup. All right, Mars. We got the game picks.
All right,
got a bunch of games to go over, so let's get to it.
Picks, man.
It's a lot, but again, we're trying to hit that 55 or better percent. We're on a pretty good track right now, but let's continue it, Mars. First one, we'll go to an A matchup, Spring Valley at Valley Central. Spring Valley is 1-0. Valley Central not in Section 1, but they are 0-3, obviously due to COVID, and Spring Valley's had to maneuver their schedule around. But I'm going with Spring Valley. I think Spring Valley showed a lot, and they were very impressive, especially on the offensive line. I didn't think they, I thought they would be more athletic, not as strong, but they showed that they can run with power as well, not just with the speed. We knew that they had speed on the outside, but they ran with power, and Duncan was a big part of that at the running back spot. I'm going with Spring Valley. I think they were really impressive, and I think they continue this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Spring Valley too. I feel like they really unleashed their ability. They unleashed the beast this week, and they really showed how many different facets they can do, they can attack on offense. And I just think this is going to be a pretty solid win for them.
All right, Mars, let's go to the C matchup. Dobbs Ferry 1-1 at Valhalla. That's 1-1. Mars, who do you have and why?
I'm gonna have Dobbs Ferry. I think that last week was a really tough loss. I think that the Dans are kind of now the anger, the aggression probably in that household right now is probably through the roof. And I think that the Dans are going to have a breakout game. I think they're really going to wear and tear, and I think they're going to really control the pace.
I'm going Valhalla, Mars. I think they figured out their quarterback dilemma. Obviously, it's hard to when Dawson goes down. I think they have a nice little mix. I think they will keep Dobbs Ferry a little off balance with different formations. I think this will be a very close game, which every Dobbs Ferry and Valhalla has been for the last couple of years. But I'm going to go with Valhalla. I think Valhalla wins. Let's go to a CD matchup, Mars. Woodlands 0-1 at Haldane. That is 0-2. Mars, who do you have and why?
This one's a tough one. I feel like I'm going to go more Woodlands on this one. I feel like I really like their players, their skill players that they have. I feel like they are kind of trying to build up their momentum on the offensive line. They have to win these trenches, and I think it'll be a solid win for them. This
one was a tough one for me. I've been going back and forth on it, but I am also going to go Woodlands, Mars. I think Woodlands has just a little bit too much speed. I really like the Santoses on Haldane. I like the coaching of Haldane. They're tough and gritty, but I do think that guys like Leak, guys like Young are going to hit some home run plays, and that's going to be the difference in this game. So I'm going Woodlands. Let's go to the B matchup. I'm going to pick this one, Marsh. You're not going to pick it. Hen Hud at Pleasantville. Hen Hud 1-1 at Pleasantville 2-0. I am going with Hen Hud. I think this is a really tough matchup. Two very gritty, hard blue-collar teams. But I think Hen Hud is going to stop the running game of Pleasantville, force them to pass the ball, and I think the secondary Hen Hud will make some plays on the ball. That will be the difference in this game. Two teams I do like, but I am going to go Hen Hud in a squeaker versus Pleasantville. Let's go to an A matchup, Mars. Pelham 0-2 at Eastchester. That is 1-1. I'm going to start with this one. I really, this is another really hard matchup for me to determine. Eastchester is a tough, gritty team that runs the ball really well, and Pelham has been a young team that, in my opinion, has improved these last 2 weeks. I'm going with Pelham, Mars. I think they're getting better up front these last 2 weeks. I think they're going to continue to do that, and guys like Volpe is going to make some plays, and the guy to look for is Brian and Reen. I think those two guys are going to be making some serious plays for Pelham, which is going to be the difference. It's not going to be easy stopping Paradino and the D'Agostino rush attack, but I do think Pelham makes a couple plays in the passing game that's going to be the difference. I'm going with Pelham.
I'm going to go with Eastchester on this one. I think that, Pelham might be getting better. I just think Eastchester's kind of developing their rhythm. And I think this is going to be a tough game. It'll be a little closer than probably get fans' hearts pumping. But I think Eastchester's going to pull off the win with a lot of their rush attack.
Let's go to another A matchup. Lakeland 1-1 at John Jay Cross River. That is 2-0. I tell you, Lakeland is a gritty team. Mars, Libretti has been really good. The rush attack has been surprisingly well. Pass attack is still trying to figure it out, and I do really still like Santucci, but I'm going with John Jay Cross River. John Jay is one of the teams that not enough people talk about. Their defense has been fantastic. They show a lot of speed on defense, and the offensive line is one of the best in the class, which helps lead this nasty rush attack with their quarterback and their running back, Connolly Mars. I'm going with John Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with John Jay as well. Their offensive line has been really dominating, and you know what's scary? When John Jay is under the radar of being one of the top teams in A, that's just deadly. And I think that
they're not talked about enough.
Yeah, they're just continually just pounding away at the rock and running the ball, and they're just going to win this one pretty easily.
Defense has been fantastic. Let's go to another A matchup. We talked about this one, Mars. Clarkstown South 1-1 at Brewster, who's also 1-1. Mars, who do you got?
I'm going to go with Brewster. I think that going up against Somers, which I think is the top tier of A, really definitely put them in. I mean, it was a close game for a time, and then it kind of got opened up later on. But I really think that Brewster's front seven is going to show out in this game. I think it'll be a lot closer than what people think. And I know Clarkstown South had a tough loss too. I just think that Brewster played up against the top tier of A, and I think that they stood their ground for most of it. I think they're going to kind of squeak away in this one. So I'm picking Brewster.
Two teams that I really like. Brewster is home. Brewster, again, Clarkstown South has a short week, but I am going to go with Clarkstown South. I still have faith in this team, and I do like the talent up front and at the skill spot. And I think Clarkstown South will make a couple more plays. I just don't think Brewster has as much depth as Clarkstown South has, and I think that will be the difference. But we will see. I think this is a really close game, but I'm going Clarkstown South. Let's go to the AA matchup. Mars New Rochelle 2-0 at Mamaroneck 1-1. Can Mamaroneck pull off the upset is the question. I like this Mamaroneck team, but I can't do it. New Rochelle, I think they're going to win. They have just too much speed, too many guys that can hurt you. I do think Mamaroneck is definitely an improving team and a team that people need to, everyone's looking at what team after New Rochelle in their division, because we have a bunch of teams in the, Suffern, Carmel, Arlington, East Fishkill division, right? There's a bunch of teams, North Rockland. But who is that team outside New Rochelle on the other side? Mamaroneck is one of those teams, but I think New Rochelle, they're just too good defensively, too much speed, and I think they're going to pull away on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to pick New Rochelle too. I feel like they just have the stable of backs. The offensive line's cooking. They have so much speed. Their defense is rocking. I just think there's all these advantages that are on the side of New Rochelle, and I think they're going to win this one.
Let's go to the Independent League. Mars Ossining 1-1 at Mount Vernon. That is 2-0. I'm going with Mount Vernon. Ossining's quarterbacks have been beat up. I think 3 of them went out of the game at one point last game. And I got to tell you what, their Mount Vernon running back, Bennett, has been a stud this year. Not a big guy, but really fast, shifty. I think he's going to be just too much for Ossining to handle. I'm going with Mount Vernon, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mount Vernon too. I feel like the health is definitely pulled me away to kind of pick Mount Vernon. I think Mount Vernon has a lot of talent. I just think that Ossining being hurt as badly as they are, especially the quarterback position, is going to be a pretty big deal. I'm picking Mount Vernon.
Well, let's go to the B matchup. Mars Putnam Valley 0-2 at Nanuet, who is 0-2. Both these teams trying to find a win. What do you got and why?
I feel like Nanuet's going to pull this one. I think that Putt Valley is still kind of developing their identity, and I think that Nanuet is kind of itching for that first win. So is Putt Valley. I just think that Nanuet's going to have a little bit more skilled players that have been performing better as the weeks went on, and I think they're going to pull off the win here.
Putnam Valley's defense has been gritty to me. I know that they've worn down at the end of games, but I am also going to go with Nanuet. I think size up front is going to be the biggest difference, and it's hard to run out of the eye against this Nanuet defense with this defensive line and guys like Ryan, and I think they kind of stifle them offensively, and Nanuet, who has struggled offensively, will make at least a couple plays to get on the scoreboard, and I think Nanuet's going to win. Let's go to an A and AA matchup, Mars. Walter Pan is 0-2 at RCK, who is 0-2. We talked about RCK last show, but obviously their game got moved. So I'm going with RCK. I think the size advantage is going to be the big difference for RCK. Too much meat up front. They will run with some power. Defensively, I still really like this unit. I know they're 0-2, but they have battled these 2 weeks, and I'm going to go with RCK on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go RCK. I feel like they, like you said, battled. They've been fighting against good teams and keeping it close. I just think that Walter Panis is still a growing program. RCK is going to find the win this week.
Independent, Mars, we talked about this. Ramapo 1-0 at Peekskill 1-1. This is another really tough game. Peekskill at home on that beautiful field. I'm going Ramapo, Mars. I think these are two solid teams with two solid coaches. I think Ramapo just has a little bit extra at the skill spot that they're going to make those plays. This battle up front is going to be the big difference, and I think they will cancel each other out. So I'll go with the skill guys in the end, and I'm going with Ramapo.
I'm going to go Peekskill. I think being at home on your field definitely great raises the momentum, raises the intensity of this game. I think the defense is really going to show out and win the trenches. I'm picking Peekskill.
Let's go to an A matchup. Sleepy Hollow 1-1 at Harrison. That is 2-0. Another really intriguing game. This is going to be a pass attack versus the run-heavy Harrison team. This is a tough one. I really, these are both solid teams, but I am going to go with Harrison. I think Harrison is going to win. It's because they're going to control the pace of this game. Sleepy Hollow wants the ball so they could sling the ball around, make a bunch of plays on offense, if Harrison can keep them on the sideline by running the option and holding the ball for long periods of time, I think Harrison, in the end, will make enough plays on defense to win this game, and I'm going with Harrison.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Harrison. I feel like you said, keeping the pace in your favor, keeping the momentum in your favor by winning those first downs, draining the clock.
Yeah.
I feel like they're going to have the advantage here. I'm picking Harrison.
Next A matchup, Mahopac 0-1 at Nyack, who is 0-0. Nyack was on the pause. They're finally back. Mahopac, I believe, has a size advantage, Morris. I think they're going to be bigger. I think they'll run with power. I think it'll be a heavy Bastogne game, who will probably break out this week. But I am going to go with Nyack, Morris. I know it's, now a lot of people think Nyack's going to win, and Nyack was on the pause, and they didn't have a lot of practices, but I think Nyack has a bunch of speed. And Nyack is 10-3 at home over the last 3 years. They are a very tough home team. I think it's going to be a real close one, but I am going to go with Nyack in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Mahopac has a lot of size to them.
Yep.
I just think that, and I'm going to pick Nyack as well, and I think their speed's definitely going to kill. And I think, like you said, playing a home game, have be on COVID pause, you're going to have a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, and momentum on your side.
And I forgot to mention one guy, their quarterback Fowler. I'm ready to watch him play because I think this is a solid quarterback as well. Let's go to a C versus Independent, Mars. Rhinebeck 0-1 at Albertus Magnus. This is a Monday game. Rhinebeck is 0-1. Albertus Magnus is 1-1. This one was a really tough one for me, but I am going to go with Rhinebeck. And to me, what made this decision even harder was that the status of Falco. I know he got hurt in the third quarter, or I think it was the fourth quarter of the game versus Valhalla. He hurt his shoulder. If he is back, I feel much better about my pick. And if he's not back, I feel a lot worse about my pick because I think that's how much I think of him. But I do think that even if a young quarterback is in there, I think they'll make enough plays. They'll rely on their front, which I think is really solid, the offensive line, to run the ball. They'll make enough plays against this Cody Johnson rush attack and Logan Maher on Albertus Magnus, and I think Rhinebeck will win.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rhinebeck too. I feel like they have an offensive line that's there that can help any young quarterback in that spot. They also have a lot of skill players that will also ease the transition too. Yeah. So I think, like you said, either way, I feel like Rhinebeck has more oomph behind them. I'm going to pick Rhinebeck.
Let's go to the B matchup. Byram Hills, we talked about on the last show, is 2-0. Their game got canceled, obviously, when we put the show out. At Burke Catholic, who is 1-2. I'm going to go with Byram Hills. I know this is, those that watch Section 1, not really sure what Burke Catholic is, and I haven't studied profusely on Burke Catholic, and I'll be honest about it, but I just think Byram Hills is playing at such a high level right now that I do think it'll be a close game, but I do think Byram Hills is going to win this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Byram Hills too. I feel like, as you mentioned, their momentum is really cooking. They have everything going well for them, a very good run attack with Wheeler. You have offensive lines it's doing really well. I think Byram Hills is going to win this one.
All right, another B matchup, Ardsley 2-0 at Westlake, who's 0-1. Mars, who wins and why?
I'm going to go Westlake. I'm going to go Westlake on this one.
Are you sure about that? Is that your final answer?
I'm a little hesitant. I feel like it's super tough for me. I feel like I'm going to go Westlake because it's a really big game. They were on COVID pause, right? And I feel like having game planning against Ardsley all the way to this point gives them that part of the advantage. The downside is that you're not practicing as much because you're on that pause.
Yeah.
But I think that they have the speed, they have a lot of skill behind them, and I feel like they're going to try to squeak out this victory. This might be a big upset in this B category. But when you look at the top teams of B right now, Westlake is right in that spot where they were playing tough. They're playing tough in their division. I think that Westlake, this is kind of a big game for them to try to bring back some momentum back to their program. I think I'm picking Westlake.
Ardsley has won 21 straight versus Section 1 opponents, Mars, and they are won 9 straight on the road. That is tough to beat. But I am going with Westlake as well, Mars. Westlake is 10-3 at home over the last 3 years. I agree with you about their speed, and I also agree with you about at some point the streak's got to come to an end, right?
Yeah.
At some point, it's got to come to an end. And this is what I'm calling. I'm calling the upset of the week is Westlake over Ardsley. Going to be a really tough game. I'm really excited about this one. But I do think that Sardo will make some plays, and some of the other guys, maybe not well known, will make some plays in this one, and I think Westlake will win. Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. Our A matchup, Yorktown 1-1 at Rye. That is 2-0. Can Yorktown pull off the upset, Mars, and get revenge?
When you look at this matchup, I mean, Yorktown's defense has been rocking and rolling, and as much as Rye has been a dominant program in A this entire time, their offense has definitely been changing, and I feel like and not saying they're not dangerous now. I just think that when you look at this offense, they're heavily relying on the run. And they do have a lot of skilled players in all different positions. In Yorktown, on the other hand, has a young squad on offense. They have a heavy run attack with some passing attempts with rollouts. But I'm going with Rye. I mean, Rye has everything going for them. I think defense. This is the matchup. This is a game of the week for a reason. It's very tough for me to pick this game because of the fact that Yorktown's defense is rocking and rolling, and Rye has been rocking and rolling. But the thing that gives me the edge to pick Rye is because Yorktown's offense is not as lethal as it normally would be, and I'm not downgrading the offense because they've been doing well enough. I just think that when Rye has everything going for them. The defense has been playing well. Their offense has really been playing well. And then you look at Yorktown, the defense has been top-notch. The offense has kind of been more narrow-minded on you can only running more often than passing. And just the passing concept is not as fluent as it used to be. And I just think that Rye is going to win this game.
I agree with you. I'm going to go with Rye. And a lot of the points you make ring true to me. And I just feel that Yorktown's offense will not be able to keep up with Rye's offense. Both defenses are going to be sound. Yorktown just has a grit about them. They're well coached. I think they will fight in this game. This will not be a blowout, in my opinion, but I do think Rye is going to win. All right, everyone, that was our show. I know we went over a bunch of games. Heavy football weekend for sure, Mars, and I hope you guys enjoy. Have a safe, sports-filled week, and we hope to see you all very soon.